Billionaire dad watches waitress feed his disabled son and changes her life forever. How could a simple act of kindness from a waitress towards a billionaire's disabled son, found alone in the rain, lead to a world of trouble? When Serena accepts a life-changing job offer out of compassion, the shocking twist isn't just her new fortune, but the ruthless corporate sabotage she faces from those threatened by her rise. Subscribe, like, and listen now to discover if her good heart can survive a world of greed and deception. The late October rain lashed against the windows of Raymond Holt's custom sedan, mirroring the storm brewing inside him. He glanced from the congested highway traffic towards the passenger seat, where his 12-year-old son, Ben, sat quietly in his specialized car seat, gazing out at the gray, wet world. Ben had cerebral palsy, a condition affecting his muscle control and coordination, requiring the use of a wheelchair and significant daily assistance. He was bright, observant, with his late mother's soulful brown eyes, but his physical limitations often built walls of frustration around him. Raymond, founder and CEO of Holt Dynamics, a Chicago-based global leader in robotics and AI, could command boardrooms, navigate complex international markets, and shape technological futures. Yet, he felt increasingly powerless when it came to ensuring consistent, compassionate care for his own son. Since his wife, Elizabeth's, death from cancer when Ben was just 4, Raymond had poured himself into his work, partly as a coping mechanism, partly driven by a desire to provide every possible resource for Ben. But nannies and caregivers came and went, often technically proficient, but lacking the warmth, patience, and intuition Ben truly needed. Agencies sent replacements, but the cycle of adjustment and disappointment continued, leaving both father and son weary. The latest agency caregiver, Martha, seated in the back, had proven particularly difficult. Efficient but coolly detached, often sighing with impatience during Ben's slower moments. They were returning from a follow-up appointment with a renowned pediatric neurologist downtown, and the unexpected torrential downpour had snarled traffic to a crawl. Ben was growing restless and uncomfortable. Raymond spotted a small, unassuming roadside diner ahead, Rosie's Place, a relic from another era nestled between newer strip malls. "Let's pull over," Raymond decided, signaling towards the exit. "Ben needs a break, and frankly, so do I. Martha, we'll grab a quick bite." As Raymond maneuvered the car into a parking spot near the entrance, his secure phone buzzed insistently. It was his COO, regarding an urgent crisis with their primary European data center. "Damn it," he muttered. "Martha, I have to take this. Get Ben settled under the awning. I'll be right there, 5 minutes max." He cracked the window, needing to hear the call clearly over the drumming rain, his focus shifting instantly to the corporate emergency unfolding continents away. Martha, clearly displeased by the unscheduled stop and the prospect of wrestling Ben's wheelchair out in the downpour, unbuckled Ben with rough, impatient movements. She managed to get him into a chair and pushed him under the narrow overhang by the diner door, leaving him partially exposed to the wind-driven rain while she lit a cigarette nearby, oblivious or uncaring. Ben shivered, pulling his thin jacket tighter, looking small and alone. Inside Rosie's Place, Serena Rossi, 26, was meticulously wiping down a red vinyl booth, humming softly to the old tune playing on the jukebox. Waitressing here wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, barely. Most of her earnings went towards supporting her younger brother, Finn, who suffered from cystic fibrosis and required expensive medications and treatments. Serena worked double shifts whenever possible, her own dreams deferred for Finn's well-being. She was tired, her feet ached, but her nature was inherently sunny, finding small joys in a kind customer or a perfectly poured cup of coffee. She glanced towards the door as a particularly strong gust of wind rattled the glass. Her eyes widened in concern. Huddled under the awning, looking soaked and miserable, was a boy in a wheelchair. He was alone, shivering, his hands shaking. There was no sign of an adult nearby, except for a woman standing several feet away, smoking, seemingly oblivious. Serena's heart gave a lurch. Without a second thought, she dropped her rag, grabbed her own worn cardigan from the hook by the kitchen door, and pushed through the diner entrance into the sheeting rain. "Hey there, honey," she called out gently, approaching the boy. "You look frozen. Let's get you inside where it's warm." Ben looked up, startled, his large brown eyes wide with uncertainty. Serena didn't wait for permission. She quickly maneuvered his wheelchair through the doorway, ignoring the puddles forming around them on the worn linoleum floor. "Goodness, you're soaked through," she clucked, draping her cardigan around his thin shoulders. "Let's get you warm." She wheeled him towards a booth near the counter, tucking him in safely. "How about some hot soup?" "My treat. Rosie makes the best tomato soup." Ben managed a weak, shy smile. "Okay," he whispered, his teeth still chattering slightly. "Thank you." "You're welcome, sweetie," Serena said warmly. "Where's your grown-up?" Ben's smile faltered. "My dad's on the phone," he murmured, glancing towards the parking lot. "The lady, she just left me here." Serena's brow furrowed with indignation, but she kept her tone light for Ben's sake. "Well, you're safe now. Soup's coming right up." She bustled off to the kitchen. Outside, Raymond finally ended his call, the data center crisis temporarily contained. He turned, expecting to see Martha with Ben, ready to go inside. Instead, he saw Martha stomping towards her own car parked nearby, throwing her cigarette down in anger. He then saw the empty space under the awning where Ben had been. Panic seized him, cold and sharp. "Ben!" He scanned the parking lot wildly, his heart hammering against his ribs. Then, through the Rain Street diner window, he saw him. Ben was tucked into a booth, a colorful cardigan around his shoulders, looking up with trusting eyes, a young woman with warm, kind features who was placing a steaming bowl of soup in front of him. Relief washed over Raymond, so potent it left him weak-kneed. He watched for a moment, unseen, as the young woman sat down opposite Ben, picked up the spoon, and began gently feeding him the soup, talking to him softly, her smile genuine and comforting. It was a scene of simple, unadorned tenderness, the kind of easy compassion he'd struggled desperately to find for his son. He didn't know who she was, but in that moment, she felt like an answer to a prayer he hadn't dared to voice. Holding his umbrella like a shield against the rain and his own roiling emotions, Raymond Holt walked towards the door of Rosie's place. Raymond pushed open the diner door, the bell above it announcing his arrival with a cheerful jingle that felt jarringly at odds with the turmoil inside him. Serena looked up, startled, a spoonful of soup halfway to Ben's mouth. Ben's face lit up immediately. "Dad!" Serena quickly put the spoon down, a blush rising on her cheeks as she realized this must be the boy's father. "Oh, hello," she said, suddenly flustered. He looked so cold out there, I couldn't leave him." Raymond walked towards the booth, his gaze shifting from Ben's relieved face to Serena's concerned one. The anger he'd felt towards the departed caregiver momentarily faded, overshadowed by immense gratitude. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion, unsteady. He reached out, stroking Ben's damp hair. "Ben, are you okay?" "Serena gave me soup, Dad." "It's warm," Ben said, smiling, clearly comfortable with the young waitress. "Serena," Raymond repeated her name, looking at her properly now. She looked young, maybe mid-20s, Her waitress uniform simple but neat, her eyes kind and direct. There was an openness about her, an unaffected warmth. I don't know how to thank you. My caregiver. He gestured vaguely towards the door, frustration returning. She just walked off? Left him. I was on an urgent call right by the entrance. Only for a minute. He trailed off, shaking his head, the familiar weight of guilt settling back in. It's okay, Serena said quickly, understanding flashing in her eyes. He's safe and warm now. That's the main thing. Would you like some coffee, sir? You look like you could use it. Please. And call me Raymond, he replied, sliding into the booth opposite Ben and Serena. He watched as Serena interacted easily with Ben while getting his coffee, asking him about the soup, listening patiently as Ben spoke, his speech sometimes slow and requiring effort. She didn't rush him. She simply waited, her attention fully on him. When she returned with the coffee, Raymond studied her again. You're very good with him, he stated quietly. Serena shrugged slightly, placing the mug down. I have a younger brother. Maybe I'm just used to it. Ben's a sweet kid. He is, Raymond agreed, his gaze softening as he looked at his son, who was now attempting to spoon the soup himself, Serena offering quiet encouragement. Finding people who truly see him, not just the chair or the diagnosis. It's difficult. He hesitated, then made a decision. This felt different. This woman's kindness wasn't professional or forced. It was instinctive. Serena, forgive me for being forward, but my situation, finding reliable, compassionate help for Ben is a constant struggle. The agency caregivers often lack. Well, what you just showed. He leaned forward slightly. I need someone dedicated, someone patient, someone who connects with Ben. This wouldn't be like agency work, answering to a corporation. You'd work directly for me, as part of Ben's core support team, liaising with therapists, helping with his exercises, providing companionship. The hours would be structured, and the pay, he paused, would be significantly better than what I imagine you make here. Serena stared at him, momentarily speechless. Work? For you? Taking care of Ben? Yes. Essentially, Raymond confirmed. He saw the surprise and uncertainty in her eyes. He quickly pulled out his wallet and extracted a business card. This is me, Raymond Holt. Please take this. Think about it. No pressure, but I believe you have a natural gift for this. Ben clearly feels comfortable with you already. Serena took the card, turning the heavy, expensive stock over in her fingers. Holt Dynamics. The name was vaguely familiar. A huge tech company. This man was wealthy, powerful. The offer was staggering, unexpected. Better pay could mean better care for Finn, easing the constant financial anxiety that shadowed her life. But she felt wildly unqualified. Mr. Holt, Raymond, she corrected herself nervously. That's incredibly generous, but I'm just a waitress. I don't have any special training, no degrees in childcare or therapy. Raymond waved a dismissive hand, cutting her off gently. Serena, I can hire technical skills. I have therapists, tutors, doctors. What I can't easily hire is genuine compassion. Patience. Heart. That's what Ben needs most. That's what I saw just now. I don't need a degree. I need someone like you. His sincerity was compelling. She looked at Ben, who was watching their exchange with hopeful eyes. She thought of Finn, of the mounting medical bills. This opportunity felt like a lifeline thrown during a storm. It was terrifying stepping into such an unknown, high-stakes world, but the potential to make a real difference for Ben and for her own family was undeniable. Okay, she said, taking a deep breath. Okay, Raymond. I'll think about it. Seriously. And I'll call you. A slow smile spread across Raymond's face. The first genuine smile Serena had seen. Thank you, Serena. That's all I asked. He signaled to Rosie behind the counter, settling the bill for the soup and coffee, adding a tip so large it made Rosie's eyebrows shoot up. As Raymond carefully helped Ben back into his wheelchair, preparing to brave the rain again, Ben reached out a hand toward Serena. "Bye, Serena," he said, his smile wide. "Thanks for the soup." "Anytime, Ben," Serena replied warmly, giving his hand a gentle squeeze. "You take care now." She watched them leave, the sleek black car disappearing into the gray curtain of rain. She looked down at the heavy business card in her hand, Raymond Holt's name embossed in crisp letters. Her shift at Rosie's wouldn't end for another 4 hours, but Serena had a feeling her life had just taken a sharp, unexpected turn. Serena did call Raymond. After a long, thoughtful discussion where Raymond clearly outlined the duties, expectations, and generous salary, enough to significantly ease her worries about Finn's care, she accepted the position as Ben's companion and care assistant. Stepping into the Holt residence, a stunning modern home overlooking Lake Michigan, felt like entering another dimension. The scale of the place, the quiet efficiency of the small household staff, a chef, a housekeeper, Ben's dedicated physical therapist, the sheer wealth evident in every detail. It was initially overwhelming for someone used to the cozy chaos of Rosie's diner and her tiny apartment. But Serena's focus remained firmly on Ben. She quickly shed her initial awkwardness, her natural warmth and down-to-earth nature, putting both Ben and Raymond at ease. She wasn't intimidated by the wealth. She was focused on the boy who needed a friend and ally. She learned Ben's routines, his physical therapy exercises, his communication nuances. She didn't just assist, she engaged. Discovering Ben's fascination with astronomy, she helped him set up a telescope on his accessible balcony, spending evenings patiently helping him locate constellations. She found adaptive tools that allowed him to paint, unleashing a hidden artistic talent. She read aloud adventure stories, doing all the voices, making Ben erupt in delighted laughter. Ben thrived. Under Serena's consistent, cheerful care, he became more confident, more verbal, more engaged with his therapies. His therapist noted marked improvement, attributing it to his increased motivation and happier demeanor. Raymond watched the transformation with quiet awe and relief. He saw Ben's genuine affection for Serena, the easy way they interacted, the light back in his son's eyes. He also began to notice Serena's other qualities. She was incredibly organized, managing Ben's complex schedule of therapy appointments, tutoring sessions, and medical checkups with flawless efficiency. She was observant, often noticing small changes in Ben's mood or physical state before anyone else. She was resourceful, finding creative solutions to everyday challenges related to Ben's care. Raymond found himself relying on her not just for Ben's well-being, but for bringing order to that entire sphere of his life, freeing up valuable mental energy for him. He started entrusting her with small additional tasks, managing household expenses related to Ben's care, coordinating travel logistics for specialist visits, even screening non-urgent calls pertaining to Ben's school or activities. Serena handled everything with competence, common sense, and unwavering discretion. After nearly 8 months, it became clear to Raymond that Serena's capabilities extended far beyond companionship and basic care. Her organizational acumen, her calm under pressure demeanor, and her innate trustworthiness were assets he desperately needed in his own chaotic life as a CEO and single father. He called her into his home study one evening. "Serena," he began, "your work with Ben has been transformative, more than I ever hoped for. But I've also seen how incredibly capable and organized you are in managing everything around him. Frankly, you're more efficient than half the people in my executive wing." He paused. "I want to offer you a new position. My personal assistant. It would involve managing my schedule, coordinating travel, handling correspondence, liaising between my corporate office and household staff, and continuing to oversee Ben's overall care coordination. It's a demanding role, stepping into the corporate sphere. But I believe you can do it. Serena was stunned by the promotion, but also excited by the challenge. She had proven herself, earned this step up through competence, not just kindness. She accepted, ready for the next chapter. Her transition into the gleaming, high-pressure environment of Holt Dynamics headquarters was another adjustment. While Raymond's support was unwavering, not everyone welcomed her. Whispers followed her down the hallways. The waitress turned PA, the boss's special project. Most were professional, if coolly distant, but one executive made his disdain clear. Carl Brenner, the ambitious director of operations. Brenner, a slick, older man who had been with the company for years, viewed Serena with open suspicion and contempt. He saw her rapid rise as unearned, her lack of formal business qualifications an insult. He likely feared her proximity to Raymond gave her undue influence, potentially threatening his own position or, perhaps, exposing the financial irregularities he had carefully hidden for years. He made snide remarks in meetings, subtly undermined her requests, and treated her with condescending formality. Serena felt the hostility, the prejudice of the corporate old guard against an outsider, but she refused to be intimidated. She focused on her work, performing her duties meticulously, her professionalism her shield against the corporate politics swirling around her. She knew, however, that Carl Brenner saw her as an obstacle, and obstacles, in his world, were meant to be removed. Carl Brenner's resentment towards Serena festered. Her efficiency, her growing rapport with Raymond, and her quiet competence only solidified his belief that she was a threat. He saw her unassuming background not as a testament to her adaptability, but as proof of her unsuitability for the corporate world, an interloper who needed to be put back in her place. More pressingly, perhaps, he worried that her meticulous nature and access to Raymond's affairs might inadvertently uncover the embezzlement scheme he had been running for years, siphoning company funds through padded invoices and fictitious vendor accounts within the operations division he controlled. He decided Serena had to go. His plan was insidious, designed to play on her perceived lack of corporate savvy and exploit her access to sensitive information as Raymond's PA. Holt Dynamics was in the final stages of developing a revolutionary AI-driven prosthetic limb, codenamed Project Phoenix. Brenner knew that even a hint of leaked information could be devastating. He began subtly manipulating digital trails, creating false access logs suggesting Serena had viewed highly confidential Phoenix files outside her purview. He then anonymously leaked carefully selected, slightly outdated technical specifications to a known industry blogger, timing it perfectly. Just days later, Brenner requested an urgent, confidential meeting with Raymond and the head of security, presenting his findings. He laid out the fabricated access logs, the timing of the leak, and painted Serena as either dangerously careless or deliberately malicious, perhaps manipulated by a competitor or seeking personal gain. "It pains me to say this, Raymond," Brenner concluded, his voice dripping with false regret, "but all evidence points to a mess. Rossi is the source of the leak. Her lack of experience, her unusual background. Perhaps she was in over her head, or worse." Raymond was shocked and deeply troubled. He trusted Serena implicitly, yet Brenner's evidence, on the surface, looked damning. He summoned Serena to his office, the head of security present, and laid out the accusation, his expression grave. Serena listened calmly, her heart pounding, but her mind racing. Brenner's animosity had been palpable, She wasn't entirely surprised he'd try something, but the accusation of corporate espionage was shocking. Her days waitressing had taught her to read people, to notice small inconsistencies, to remember details under pressure. She had noticed odd things about Brenner's operations: rushed approvals on large invoices from unfamiliar vendors, hushed, agitated phone calls he took in his office, discrepancies in budget reports she'd glimpsed while organizing Raymond's paperwork. At the time, they were just background noise, but now, under suspicion herself, those details snapped into focus. "Raymond," she said, her voice steady, "I swear to you, I never accessed those files intentionally, nor would I ever leak confidential information. This doesn't make sense. May I see the access logs Mr. Brenner provided?" Given permission, she examined the logs closely. Her meticulous nature, honed by juggling dozens of diner orders, kicked in. She noticed anomalies Brenner hadn't counted on her spotting. Timestamps that didn't align with her known work schedule on Raymond's calendar, access points from terminals she hadn't used. These times, she pointed out, I was in documented meetings with you, Raymond, or overseeing Ben's therapy sessions off-site. And this IP address isn't from my assigned workstation. Her mind flashed back to a seemingly innocuous incident a week earlier. Carl had accidentally spilled coffee near her workstation, insisting on helping clean it up while she was briefly called away. Had he used that moment to access her terminal? She knew she needed more than just pointing out log inconsistencies. Over the next 48 hours, granted time by conflicted Raymond to find counter-evidence, Serena worked methodically. She recalled Brenner's agitated calls and the unfamiliar vendor names. She didn't have access to detailed financial systems, but she did have access to Raymond's archived emails and company directories. She cross-referenced the vendor names from invoices she'd briefly seen on Brenner's desk, remembering them with her waitress-honed memory, with company records. She found several shell corporations with P.O. box addresses, linked to domains registered anonymizing services. The key break came from an unexpected source. A junior accountant in Brenner's division, frequently bullied by Carl and appreciative of Serena's always polite interactions, saw her distress. He discreetly slipped her a file, copies of inflated invoices Brenner had personally approved, along with routing numbers for payments to accounts the accountant couldn't reconcile with legitimate vendors. He'd been suspicious for months, but too afraid to speak up. Armed with this, Serena requested IT support, citing suspicious login attempts on her account based on the logs Brenner provided. A standard security sweep recovered deleted email fragments from Brenner's account. Frantic messages to the anonymous blogger after the leak, trying to control the narrative, and correspondence with the shell corporations discussing payment processing. Serena compiled everything. The log discrepancies cross-referenced with her calendar, the list of shell corporations, the accountant's invoices, the recovered email fragments. It painted a clear picture not of her incompetence, but of Brenner's calculated scheme to embezzle funds and frame her when he feared exposure. She requested another meeting with Raymond, the head of security, and, crucially, the chair of the audit committee from the board of directors. Calmly, logically, she presented her findings, step by step, dismantling Brenner's accusation and revealing his own systematic fraud. The evidence was concrete, verifiable, and damning. Brenner, summoned to the meeting midway through, blustered and denied, but the weight of the evidence was overwhelming. His face turned ashen as the recovered emails were displayed. Raymond's expression hardened into cold fury. The head of security quietly made a call. By the end of the meeting, Carl Brenner was dismissed, escorted from the building, and facing imminent investigation by federal authorities. Serena stood tall, vindicated not by privilege or connections, but but by her own intelligence, integrity, and meticulous attention to detail, qualities that served her just as well in the executive suite as they had behind the counter at Rosie's Diner. The exposure of Carl Brenner sent shockwaves through Hold Dynamics, but it also solidified Serena Rossi's reputation. She wasn't just the boss's kind-hearted assistant. She was sharp, courageous, and possessed an unshakable ethical core. Raymond Holt felt a profound sense of pride in her, mixed with gratitude for her loyalty and relief that his trust had been so thoroughly vindicated. He also recognized that her talents and passion were being underutilized in the role of personal assistant. He had long considered establishing a more formal philanthropic arm for Hold Dynamics, moving beyond standard corporate donations towards something more impactful. Witnessing Serena's compassion, her practical intelligence, and remembering her own struggles supporting her brother Finn gave him clarity. He called Serena into his office a week after Brenner's dismissal. "Serena," he began, "what you did, uncovering Brenner's fraud while defending yourself. It was extraordinary. You have a keen mind, incredible integrity, and a deep well of compassion. I believe you're meant for more than managing my schedule." He outlined his vision, the Ben's Warmth Foundation, the official charitable foundation of Hold Dynamics. Its mission would be twofold: supporting families raising children with disabilities, providing resources, respite care, and funding for adaptive equipment, and investing in programs that create accessible environments in communities, playgrounds, learning centers, vocational training. "I want you to run it," he stated simply. "As executive director, build it from the ground up, shape its mission, use your experience, your empathy, your organizational skills to make a real difference." Tears sprang to Serena's eyes. This wasn't just a promotion. It was an opportunity to channel her life experiences into meaningful action to help families like her own, like Raymond and Ben's. "Raymond, yes," she managed, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I would be honored." Serena poured her heart and soul into the Ben's Warmth Foundation. She assembled a small, dedicated team, prioritizing passion and practicality over pedigree. Drawing on her own family struggles, she designed programs that offered tangible relief. Grants that helped parents afford specialized wheelchairs or communication devices. Partnerships with hospitals to provide counseling and support groups. Funding for accessible renovations in community centers. She remembered the isolation Ben had sometimes felt and championed initiatives that built inclusive playgrounds where children of all abilities could play side by side. Hold Dynamics, once known primarily as a cutting-edge tech giant, began gaining recognition for its genuine commitment to social responsibility, largely due to Serena's visible leadership and the foundation's transparent, impactful work. Meanwhile, the small family unit formed that rainy day at Rosie's Diner solidified into something deep and loving. With Serena managing the foundation and Raymond making a conscious effort to rebalance his priorities, life found a healthier rhythm. Raymond learned to delegate more effectively at work, carving out protected time for Ben. They attended baseball games, visited museums, worked on Ben's astronomy projects together. Serena remained a vital part of their lives, not just as Raymond's colleague, but as Ben's cherished friend and confidant, joining them for dinners, holidays, and weekend outings. The professional boundary blurred naturally into the warm, comfortable lines of a found family. Ben, surrounded by love, stability, and encouragement, continued to blossom, his wit and intelligence shining brightly. One sunny afternoon, several years later, the three of them stood together at the opening ceremony for the Foundation's latest project, a state-of-the-art adaptive learning and recreation center for children with disabilities. Serena had just given a heartfelt speech, and now she stood beside Ben's wheelchair, watching children explore the accessible wonders of the new facility. Ben reached out and took her hand, his grasp surprisingly strong. He looked up at her, his brown eyes shining with affection. "Serena," he said clearly, "when you found me at the diner that day, were you my angel?" Serena knelt beside his chair, her own eyes welling up. She squeezed his hand gently. "Oh, Ben," she whispered, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. "I think maybe you were mine. You and your dad. You gave me a chance, a purpose, a whole new life I never imagined." Raymond stepped up behind them, placing a hand on Serena's shoulder and the other on Ben's. He looked from his smiling son to the remarkable woman beside him, his heart full. "You didn't just save my son that day, Serena," he said quietly, his voice thick with gratitude. "You showed me what was missing in my own life. You saved me, too." He looked out at the joyful scene, at the tangible results of the foundation bearing his son's name, a legacy born not from strategic planning or corporate ambition, but from a simple bowl of soup offered with kindness on a rainy afternoon. Serena Rossi hadn't just changed her own fate. She had transformed a billionaire, his son, and his entire company, proving that the most powerful force in the world wasn't technology or wealth, but the enduring, life-altering strength of a compassionate heart.